We're running.
Well, all the way from good afternoon to good evening from all the people that are attending. I want to thank everybody for taking some time out of their days to add to their own knowledge and education about gems. First off, I want to thank Dr. Clement Schwartzinger for being our technological support and my moral support as well. I really appreciate everything he does and helping us move forward with Gemquest when we ran into problems with our previous supporter. So thank you very much, Clemens. It's much appreciated. And in particular, I want to thank our presenter this evening or today, Sammantha. Um, I challenged her to give us a presentation about something which we all get in our basic gemological training, which is to look at inclusions and understand the value and importance of them. And I thought I'd be cutesy and call us all gem detectives, and this would be aiding and abetting our education and our ability to become better gem detectives in a way. So I want to also thank Sammantha for not only giving us her time, her energy, and her knowledge, but also for the fact that I can't believe that someone so young has so much of a big alphabet after her name in terms of qualifications. So, and she, a mother of two and a working lady, and she still has all these qualifications. So I'm impressed all to heck. I think you have more than just about anybody else we've had as a speaker over the almost 4 years now. So congratulations on that. So I think I personally believe that inclusions are perhaps one of the most important, easy, or not maybe not so easy, but relatively easy tools for us to use for identification, qualification, valuations of gems. And so I want to very much thank our guest tonight, Sammantha MacLachlan, who has an FGA, DGA, FIRV, and MGVA, is an independent jewelry evaluator based in Glasgow in the UK. She has over 20 years of experience. She must have started when she was 12 in the industry and worked at high-end jewelry and watch sales before finding her passion for gemology and valuations. Excuse me. Sammantha is a fellow of GemA and a past winner of the Gordon Ness Trophy for top mark in gemology diploma exam. She also holds a diamond diploma with merit from GemA. Sammantha is also mentor and tutor for new and student valuers as part of the National Association of Jewelers Institute of Registered Valuers. The passion of Sammantha's when she's not in the office providing valuations is photomicrography. Pardon me. Start again. Photographing gemstones and their inclusions under the microscope, and can often spend countless hours catching just the right image to be shared online and also weekly in the Roskin Gem News Report, where she has a magazine page. So I'd like to ask you all to give a warm welcome to Sammantha, and I give the stage to you. Thank you so much for giving your time and knowledge.
Thank you, Ray. That was a lovely introduction. Thank you so much, everyone, for having me here tonight. I feel quite humbled to be here. You've had some fantastic guests in the past, some really in-depth, fantastic topics too. So I'm going to talk a little bit tonight about inclusions, as Ray mentioned. It's not going to be too hard going, be a little bit easy going on you. We will get started. So, as Ray mentioned, this is part one of this Gem Detective series looking at inclusions.
We don't have any image yet. Could you share screen share, please?
Sorry about that. Bear with me.
A green button at the lower line of your, or mostly on the lower line, depends where you are. But it should be share screen.
That's it there. My bad. Sorry about that.
No problem. You just click it and then you can select whatever window you have open.
There we go. Is that you? Can you see me now?
Not yet.
Nope, still not. No. Sorry, there we go.
Aha.
Mhm.
Let me go full screen now and then. There we go.
There we are. Perfect. Mm. Okay. Sorry, I just wanted to check we were going well there. So, yeah, so part one of the series, looking mainly at coloured stones at this point. I've popped in one or two diamond inclusion photos too, but really we're looking at coloured gemstones today. Let's get started. So this is just an introduction into what we'll be talking about today. Ray asked me to look at what we can learn from inclusions. We can, of course, look at whether a stone is of synthetic or of natural origin. We can also often, when we look through the microscope, detect treatments, which we'll look at. And we can also get some clues about the origin. Now, you'll note that I've put an asterisk next to clues. When we talk about origins, these are always an opinion, very much an opinion based on lots of samples and references. However, it's always good to say that there's more testing required than just looking at the inclusions themselves. Just as a point of interest, on the right-hand side of your screen there is one of my images, which is hematite in quartz. It is intermittent growth, so you can see where it stopped and started growing all the way along these stringer patterns. I've tried to use as much of my own imagery in this presentation as I can. However, there were some pieces which I didn't have my own images of. So kindly, I've had permission of a few others to use their images. So let's get started on what we can learn from inclusions. In this particular case, if you want to, you can feel free to drop a message in the chat, which I'll just open up here so I can see it, whilst you're looking at the images to see if you can identify what the particular inclusion we're looking at is. In this case, I think you can see quite clearly that we are looking at a stone which has these lovely curved striae running through it. Not, of course, to be mistaken for polish lines, which are very straight and change direction on each facet. These are lovely curved striae throughout the stone. This particular stone may also sometimes have bubbles within the stones themselves. The bubbles can be rounded or they can be elongated. Does anyone want to have a guess on this one? This one should be a nice, easy one. No. So there we go. There we are. So of course this is our Verneuil flame fusion synthetic corundum. Those curved striae, of course, appear as the titanium oxide powders is melting and dropping down onto the seed crystal to form this lovely bull crystal. It's developing these layers. There might be changes in the pigmentation, the colouring throughout there. In this case, of course, our colouring agent would be chromium because we're looking at a ruby. But when you have slight pigmentation changes, you can see these striae nice and clearly. Moving on to another. Again, this is one of my images. This one probably a little bit less well known. So as you can see in this case, we have some bubbles, irregularly shaped. you can see a little bit of this smoke-like swirly veils within the stone. If you've got an answer, you can pop it in the chat. This is our Jodorowsky method synthetic corundum. So we have another synthetic sapphire in this case. In this particular case, the crystal is doped with titanium. It's a laser rod Jodorowsky crystal, and it's this beautiful bubblegum pink colour. What I will say is that more modern material, this particular material here, I believe is from around the 70s. I would need to double check. It's from Russia. But this particular material nowadays is grown really quite clean. So there will be less inclusions in the modern counterpart. So that, of course, makes it much more difficult to identify. There we go, often clean material. So moving on, Igor Gavrilenko has a fantastic website, which I'll link to later on, which has some really beautiful inclusion photography, and he kindly allowed me to use one or two of his images. So again, you can pop your answer in the chat if you would like to. We obviously have a green material here. We have these veils, wispy veils with flux inclusions, which of course always give us an indication that we could be dealing with a synthetic. We could also be dealing with something else, but we'll look at that later on. This particular one is a flux-grown synthetic emerald, in this particular case, made in Russia. Russia were really fantastic pioneers in the synthetic emerald. Let's move on. So another natural or synthetic image here for you. We have a green stone again. This particular stone has this roiled appearance throughout the stone, and these chevron-like patterns throughout from the growth process. And this particular one is our hydrothermal synthetic emerald. And this particular one is photography by myself. Unfortunately, I don't know where this particular emerald was manufactured. Now, I mentioned that we might have one or two slides on diamonds. This particular diamond has these metallic rod-like inclusions within the stone. And no one's guessing here. There we are. We have a guess, and it is, of course, HPHT grown synthetic diamond. And these metals are part of the flux that starts the growth, and you have these little metallic rods captured in there. You'll never see this type of inclusion in a natural diamond, so it's a nice indicator, and of course we can back that up with some further testing to be sure. So what do we look out for when we first encounter a stone? We're looking to see if it's natural or synthetic. We can look, in the case of example sapphires, for angular growth zoning. And we can also, for example, look for crystal inclusions, like in this chrome tourmaline on the right-hand side here. This is a stone lent to me by my friend Sid Tucker. He has a beautiful collection of gems and he kindly lends them out to me sometimes for photography. These particular crystals they haven't been tested. I don't have micro ramen to test those. But it's quite unusual actually to see crystals within these chrome tourmaline. Often they're very clean stones. So it was nice to see these nice formed crystals. So if we look at these rules, as we could call them, looking for angular growth, looking for crystals, I wonder what we could think of this particular stone. This stone has, you can see, hexagonal. You see that? Yep. The hexagonal growth. It also appears to have one or two crystals in there. See, what is this? I can see a couple of guesses. Thank you. There we go. This particular stone is the Remora synthetic ruby. So whilst it follows our rules of a natural stone, is in fact a synthetic. Now, these are quite rare. You don't find them often these days. I believe the production costs were quite high on them. So they weren't used so commercially. You're less likely to come across them. But I thought this was a really nice example to show you. This is just a new stone that I purchased recently. These crystals are formed from the flux from the growth process. So whether you could technically call them crystals, but they certainly have the appearance of crystals. So there's always something out there that doesn't follow the rules. There's always something that is a little bit unusual and makes you stop and think, just like this stone. So something else that we might come across, certainly as a valuer or appraiser, I often come across period jewellery which has composite stones. Oh, there's an interesting comment in the chat there about Remora. So I often come across stones like this, and I think it's a bit of fun to look at the side by side and let's see. So this is another little guessing game for you. Asking what do we have here. One tip I would say is to look at those rutile crystals, rutile needles very closely. And see, we've already got a guess. What we have on the left-hand image there, when we're using reflected light, we can see this lovely rutile silk. We've got some more, yeah, some more answers in there. Where we look at image 2, you should see, especially down at the sort of 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock position, you see these lovely rounded, perfectly round gas bubbles. That certainly gives us a clue that there's something not right there. I always say my motto as a valuer is when we've got bubbles, we've got troubles. What we also have here, you can see it in both images, is this visible junction around sort of around the first, the top quarter or so. Visible junction telling us that there's two pieces cemented here, which gives us the clue that we're looking at a garnet top doublet. So some people may have said, and I believe I saw that, it may be ruby on glass or ruby and another ruby. But the tip here is that rutile tends to intersect, these needles will intersect at 110 and 70 degrees rather than the 60-degree angle that will occur in corundum that gives us that lovely hexagonal shape. So it's a good trick in the field. If you carry your protractor with you, you can check your rutile intersection to see what you've got. This sort of stone we don't see so often now, but it was very popular for a time. Certainly Victorian style jewellery, etc., which is about the age of this particular piece. So moving on a little bit, we're going to look at what treatments or what can tell us, what clues are there to tell us that a stone has been treated. So on the right here, we have this lovely amber, and what we can tell is that it's been heat treated. The sun spangles, I'm not sure if you can see my mouse as I move it on here, I hope you can. You can see these discoid stress fractures. These would most likely have been natural bubbles within the amber as it set and hardened and became an organic gem. But when the stone was heated, they do this in hot oil, you have linseed oil and things like that. They'll heat it up and place the stone inside. This heat causes these bubbles, etc., to expand and to burst internally. And then you can sometimes have some, can you see my mouse there? You can see these features, you can see these triangular notches which appear and give us these lovely nicknames, sun spangles. There we go, as I just explained. As I mentioned before, there is quite a bit of text on some of the slides. I know I have a strong accent and I can talk quite quickly, so I want to make sure that everyone can understand. So moving on, I see this quite often. It comes up very often on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, these sort of things. People will share photos of a stone like this, and sometimes the information is not quite right. So I'm looking to make sure that we're putting out the right information here. So what we can tell from this stone only is that it's been subject of high heat treatment. Now, what people may say is that it's evidence that the stone has been beryllium diffused more often than saying titanium. But it's very important that we know these are not evidence of diffusion or lattice or surface diffusion, but they are in fact an internal diffusion. So what has happened here is we've had an inclusion, in this case, titanium containing, so something like rutile, primary rutile, and with iron also being present in the stone, the heat has caused the inclusion to internally diffuse, and these two colouring agents have caused this blue halo around the stone. This particular stone is actually a known beryllium treated sapphire. So whilst it can be, an indicator that there may be more going on, let's just always remember that all that the blue dots tell us is that we've got high heat treatment, not that we have any form of surface or lattice. diffusion within the stone. So this may be something that not everyone has seen. Excuse me while I have a drink of water, sorry. This is a stone from my collection, which I think just has the most beautiful coloration. This particular stone is a natural spinel with cobalt diffusion. So this particular spinel would have started life as a greyish, maybe a lilacish, close to colourless spinel. What they wanted to do was create this beautiful, very desirable cobalt colour. Cobalt sapphires, of course, spinel, sorry, can reach huge amounts per carat. So they've used this heating in the presence of cobalt to diffuse this beautiful colour throughout the stone. What we can see from the images, so on the right hand side, furthest right, the crystals which would have been lovely, generally octahedral, nicely formed crystals have this melted appearance. That's down to the high heat treatment that's required for the diffusion. And then on the left hand side, we can see where there's been a fissure or a fracture feather within the stone, and some of the flux material from the heating process has gotten into the fissure and partially healed it. So you see these lovely inclusions in there too. This is a personal favourite of mine. Oh, was meant to have a little fancy intro there. This is another treatment that we're going to look at now, which is lead glass filling. Now we can quite clearly see here we have a visible luster difference on the surface of the stone. So rubies, in this case, if we're looking at a red type of corundum, we'll call it a ruby. So the ruby itself has a luster, a bright vitreous luster. The glass that's filled the stone has the vitreous glassy luster. So you can see that lower luster throughout the stone where it's filled in all of these surface reaching cavities. It gives this vein crazed like appearance across the surface of the ruby. What you may see also, depending on which light source you're using with your microscope, is flashes of colour as you rotate the stone, and those will be within those cavities. You may also see some gas bubbles in the fractures. It's just air that's been trapped in there whilst the filling has been going on. One thing to note with these glass-filled rubies is that they require a lot more care and attention than your fully natural ruby because the treatment can come out. I've had a bit of fun killing these by placing them into household cleaners and pop them in there. Even after 30 seconds, that glass starts to disintegrate, which is quite fun. And you can pick these up very cheaply, so it's nice to experiment at home sometimes with these things. You can even do it with lemon juice. That also attacks the glass. So following on from the lead glass filling, oh, sorry, I should say, what the filler is aiming to do is improve the apparent clarity of the stone. Of course, it's not actually improving it, but it's the apparent clarity. that we're improving in this case. Now, if we move on to its sister, the cobalt doped lead glass filler. So this is more our blue sapphire, of course. Again, it's going to be very similar. We're going to see that visible luster difference on the surface of the stone. This one has these beautiful colours. The colours are only seen within the fractures of the stone, because the material that's used for this is often close to colourless greyish, not a nice material to start with. But once they fill it, you improve the apparent clarity again, but also the colour. The face-up colour should appear really quite a nice blue, quite designable colour. Whereas once you start to shine those lights on it and really get in there, you'll see those areas are only filled and the fractures and the rest of the stone is quite colourless. Another type of treatment I mentioned before when we talked about the flux emerald, that there are other things to look out for when we see flux. So in this particular case, we're looking at, this image is from Igor Gavrilenko. We've got a corundum here. It's either red or pink, difficult to say exactly from the image. What we would see here is that the stone itself will have surface reaching feathers or fractures, but the inclusions show us that there's a flux residue which is actually captured within those fractures. So what this does is, this is part of the heating process. Some of the flux residues become trapped, but it does improve the apparent clarity of the stone. It looks like it partially heals those fractures. So face up again, it looks to have an apparent clarity improval. Moving on a little bit, I'm sure a lot of you will have seen this. Treatments in diamonds. This particular one, we had our diamond in front of us, would have surface reaching fractures. As we rotate it, you'll start to see flashes of colour. The reason for that is that the substance that's used to fill those feathers or fractures has a slightly different RI than that of the diamond. So they react differently, and your eye sees this colour difference. And of course, we're looking at clarity enhanced, or also known as fracture filled diamonds. GIA has some really beautiful images on this. So another diamond inclusion, which I often see as in my life as a valuer. If we have our stone in front of us, we're going to be looking at most likely pin-sized holes. They're often on the table or upper crown facets of the stone, less likely on the girdle because of the how that would make them appear when you look down at the stone. But we have this straight line, a straight channel leading to this inclusion that you can see at the top. What we most likely had was a dark crystal inclusion in that area. They wanted to improve that clarity of the stone. So the laser has drilled down and they can then bleach out that dark crystal, and we're often left with either a whitish appearance or the cavity. I forgot to put on there that it's quite clearly laser drilled diamond. So I have taken some images here of clues on origin. Again, if you want to, you can have a guess in the comment section. Again, I'm saying clues because these may help us in identification of the origin of our material. However, we need extra testing to be sure. So we've got three-phase inclusions here, our gas, liquid, and in this case, one solid crystal. This particular inclusion scene, where these cavities are quite jagged, are typical of Columbian emerald. I have said typical on everything because it's never a certainty. There have often been, for example, inclusions which we thought, well, that tells us that stone must be from Colombia, and then we find a new source and that has that type of inclusion. So gemology is always evolving, so what we know now could be different in 10 years. So here we have another inclusion scene which contains three-phase inclusions. So if we were to think that, for example, only Columbian emeralds had three phases, we would be wrong in this case because this is a Zambian emerald. You can see you've also got blocky two-phase inclusions there, just with the solid, with the gas and the liquid. Not quite so jagged, slightly different appearance in the Zambian material. Waiting to see if anyone's guessing in the chat box. I don't like to tell you the answer before they do. So in this case, this inclusion seems full of these beautiful blocky biphase inclusions. In this particular case, they are typical of Brazilian emerald. And one more on emeralds are these really beautiful tremolite needles, which are typical of Zimbabwean emerald. And I think those are particularly beautiful. Now, what we have to ask ourselves sometimes is, what does it matter where a stone comes from? Well, in this case, I'm going to show you the price comparisons. So if we were to take our emeralds and we said that we had an emerald that's 2.5 carats, if we're using the gem guide, we're using an upper good quality number 6. If they were from each of these origins, what would their pricing be? So our Brazilian wholesale cost price is going to be about £1,250 per carat. That's just the total price that's on the end there. If our stone comes from Zambia, it's gone up a little bit, £1,400 per carat. And if we move on to our Colombian stone, it's £1,700 per carat. So whilst it's not giving a huge difference in price, it's still noteworthy and certainly worthwhile sending the stone to the lab to have that piece of paper for, $50, $100 to tell you where the stone, or in their opinion, where the stone is from, and that is going to affect the pricing. So let's look at that in the case of sapphire too. This particular sapphire here, which was one I had, this was a piece I had for valuation. This has these lovely long intact rutile needles, or often called silk, which suggests that the stone has had either no or low heat treatment. I tend not to use the terms no heat treatment because even low heat treatment won't necessarily affect the rutile. This is very typical of a Sri Lankan or Ceylon sapphire. And what does it matter? So our 2.5 carat, all things being equal, we have our blue sapphire, which is, we don't know the origin in this case, let's say, and we know that the stone is definitely heated or high heat treated. We're about £650 per carat for that stone wholesale. If we move up to the Sri Lankan sapphire with no or low heat, we're about £970 per carat, so that's quite a considerable difference. And then if we were to find a Burma sapphire, so sapphire from Myanmar with no heat, we're looking at £1,500 per carat. So quite a jump there again in terms of the origin. And it's all down to that origin. It's not looking at the colour, the clarity, we're looking purely, all things being equal, just that origin is making that price difference. Lastly, we've looked at some ruby. In this particular case, we have these beautiful arrowhead rutile needles. And these are very typical of Mogok rubies from Myanmar. Of course, there are rubies from other areas of Myanmar, but particularly prized are these Mogok rubies. And these inclusion scenes are just absolutely fabulous. I was very grateful to Billy Hughes for allowing me to share some of her images because they are fabulous. Another of Billy's images, because this is just beautiful too. We have a melted crystal in this case, which indicates to us that the stone has been heated, and this thin film of iridescence around the stone, which is well, when the stone has melted, it's formed this glassy look, which reflects and gives us this beautiful iridescence. And this type of scene is typical of Thai Cambodian rubies. It's very difficult to make a distinction often between Thai rubies and Cambodian rubies. So often you will see a report which just says Thai/Cambodian. What does it matter? 2.5 carat rubies here, all things being equal. Our ruby, which has no given origin but has been heated, £1,600 per carat. But if we have a ruby from Burma with no heat, or Myanmar, £12,700 per carat. So look at that huge difference. That is why origin matters. Just briefly, I wanted to touch on valuations and what I do. So what I mentioned before, that this Sri Lankan stone I had in for valuation. So what I will do for my customers is I'll take the usual images of the item, but then I'll also include an image of the inclusion scene for them. It's a nice thing to do. Gives the customer obviously a nice extra, but it's also backing up your work as a valuer, saying that you were able to view this within the stones. This gave you evidence that there was no or low heat treatment, and that it was a typical inclusion scene found in Sri Lankan sapphires, and that's how it's been valued. So that's going to be the end of my presentation. But what I would like to say to you to recommend is that you visit these resources for further reading, for looking at the beautiful images that people share. So Lotus Gemology have what's called the Hyperion, and this is a fantastic library of images. You can choose whether you're looking at a sapphire, where its origin is, what type of treatment it's had. Click all the buttons and it comes up with these beautiful images of just what you want to look at. And also the website gemsinclusions.com from Igor Gavrilenko. It's a fantastic resource, beautiful images, and lots of information on there as well. There we are. You can see this final image here is that Remora ruby. Again, but this is viewed under cross-polarizing filters. So you can see the internal anomalous strain within the ruby, which is, in my eyes, very beautiful. But thank you. I
Okay, so
hope you
everybody
enjoyed
can
that.
unmute now. And if you have any questions, this is a great time to give them to Sammantha.
I stop screen sharing now. Is that the best?
Quick question. The tremolite needles in emerald, what was that? What was the origin indicated for?
With Zimbabwean. So Zimbabwe.
Got it. Thanks.
Hi, Sammantha. I've got a question.
Hi, Andrew.
Hi. If you see a salt crystal, a square salt crystal in an emerald, three inclusion emerald, three-phase inclusions, can you say positively that it's Colombian, or do they appear in Zambian and other emeralds? Do you know?
I don't want to say definitively, but I believe halite or salt crystals can be found in other three-phase inclusions, not just in.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
I wonder maybe if Clemens or anyone else could answer that better.
A few years ago, Sammantha, I heard that some of the synthetic emerald growers, maybe in Russia, I wasn't sure, had managed to get three-phase inclusions in their flux-grown emeralds. Is there a distinct difference between those and natural?
I haven't been shown those. I'd love to see them. If
Sounds
anyone
frightening.
has information, yes.
That scared me when I heard that. I thought, oh, geez, they're getting darn good out there.
Have you seen them yourself, Ray? Have you seen any?
Actually,
anything?
I saw one about 20 years ago. That's how long ago that I saw this. So sorry.
Can I
Yeah.
ask you, Sammantha, your photography is fantastic. How do I start trying to take nice photographs like that? How much equipment do I need?
Great
What I
question.
always say is don't feel pressured to have the best equipment. Don't feel that you have to have the best of the best right away. Start with what you can, what you have, what you can afford, and then if you really love what you're doing, then work towards, improving a little bit by a little bit. First of all, it's great, obviously, to have a nice microscope. Often people have taken the gemology diploma through GMA, and they have their microscope, which is really great for starting this, is how I started myself. The optics are quite good. The lighting maybe needs a little bit of help there. So I upgraded my microscope and added in fibre optic lighting. But really you can use, for example, something like the GMA microscope, not necessarily that one, but you can use something like that with the aid of fibre optic lighting to really improve what you're doing straight away. You also don't have to have the best camera to start with. What you can do to start with is use a mobile phone holder adapter. You can get these on Amazon and they cost about £10. And it allows you actually to put your mobile phone over the ocular of the microscope and just shoot images that way. So that's a really cost-effective way of doing it until, you get into that feeling of, I love doing this, which is what happened to me. And then the money started to fly out as I realised I needed this and this and this. So yeah, it's such a lovely pastime, I think. It's a really nice thing to do and quite rewarding when you see really lovely images. But don't feel that you have to start off with the best of the best. Just take your time, try out things and see how you go.
Thank you. I'll be getting the Gem A one in September when I start the diploma course.
There you go. Perfect. If you need
So
anything,
do
you
you-
can always contact me.
Thank you.
Do you use a dark field illuminator for that, for what you're doing, or?
I change each of my images changes. So it might be dark field, it might be bright field, it might be fibre optic only. It's different for every stone, really. And I'll try each one before moving on, because you never know when you just catch the right lighting and it shows you something you didn't see before.
Photomicrographer friend of mine showed me a little trick with the camera on the phone. Is when you're focusing through the lens, you touch the part of the image that you want to have enhanced and you spread it until it's still clear, and then take the shot. And I was amazed at the quality of photographs taken with phones these days, because the optics of the phones are so good.
Absolutely. I use the iPhone, and sometimes I'll still do a quick shot through the ocular, and it's amazing what you can get. It really is.
I got another, just an observation I had when I had a ruby in about a month ago. I could see some twinned lines in the ruby. I'm trying to photograph it, I just couldn't get it. And I tried and tried and tried. And then I put the fibre optic at a really acute angle, and it almost went black and white. And I snapped it, and there it was. But it bleached out the colour of the red altogether. It was just black and white. But I got the photo of the twinning, which was great.
A little tip for that, actually, Andrew, is the Gem A folding polariscope.
Yeah.
Pop that on top of the well, the light well.
Yeah.
Open the light well fully. Pop your polariscope on there and turn it until you get a black background.
Yeah.
And then pop your stone in, and
Yeah.
as you rotate it, you'll see the strain, etc.
And the cross polars, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that
But
next time.
things like the twinning will just pop, and you'll see so many colours, and it's beautiful.
Oh, that's a good tip. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I thank you. I'm amazed that you actually, Sammantha, managed to get more questions than just about anybody else that's spoken for the program. So good for you. I want to thank the audience for their questions, and which helps us all learn more, because the questions will answer some of the things we may not have thought to ask. And Sammantha, thank you so much for your time and commitment and your excellent information, and obviously incredibly good pictures. So I think that helped a lot of us see things that we may not have seen quite as clearly in our own microscopes before, but definitely gave us good hints in areas that we may not have thought of, or maybe even not seen those particular examples before. So thank you very much for putting it together for us today. And I will add, as a slight advertisement, that we will be having Sammantha back again at the end of May to give us another and more diverse look at inclusions. So this is part one. So those of you who attended and liked what you saw, please come back. And at that point, I'd like to thank everybody for coming, and officially close this program for today. and ask that you tune in next month and join us again for Sammantha and her continuing story on inclusions. So thanks at all, and take care. Have a great day. And Sammantha, I'll call you back when we're done and we'll have a chat. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll let you go. Thanks, Clemens, for once again for giving us of your time on a Sunday. We really appreciate that, taking away from your family and sharing with us your expertise and your knowledge. Okay, have a great day. See you next month.
Bye.